Some events in the pages of history are so horrifying and unimaginable that it's hard to believe them. Just imagine an empire whose borders stretched across 3 continents, which had the world's most ferocious army, and where more than 50 million people lived. The Roman Empire was not defeated by any external enemy. Rome did not fall in any great war, but its own protectors, Rome's most trusted soldiers, auctioned it off publicly for a few coins. Would you believe that the richest man in the world spent his entire fortune to buy the throne of Rome, only to realize upon sitting on it that he had not bought power, but a warrant for his own horrifying death? This story is a dark chapter of power, greed, and betrayal that brings a new and terrifying twist at every moment.
Barricade the gates! Arm the walls! Close the gates! Rome has been sold!
The story begins in the terrifying year of 193 D, when the responsibility of protecting Rome's power was in the hands of the Praetorian Guard. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were Rome's most elite, dangerous, and ferocious commandos. Their sole job was to protect the life of the Roman emperor. But immense power and unearned money had turned these protectors into Rome's biggest and most terrifying mafia. On December 31st, 192 AD, guards killed their cruel king Commodus. After staining their hands with the emperor's blood, they made an honest and strict man named Pertinax the new emperor for their own convenience. Pertinax, a principled emperor, took the throne and instantly ended guards' debauchery, corruption, and lawlessness. But Pertinax had forgotten that the bloodthirsty guards who could kill one emperor would not spare another. Just 87 days later came the terrifying morning of March 28, 193 AD. About 300 armed and ferocious Praetorian guards entered the royal palace with drawn swords. They surrounded Pertinax and brutally murdered him. To spread terror, they mounted their own emperor's severed head on a spear and paraded it through the streets of Rome. All of Rome was trembling in fear, but the real and darkest twist was yet to come. After murdering the emperor, these ferocious guards stood on the high walls of their fortress, known as Castra Praetoria. Blood was still dripping from their swords. Below the fort stood Rome's frightened crowd and rich senators. Suddenly from the wall, the guard commander proclaimed something that froze all humanity's history forever. He shouted, "The throne of Rome is empty. Whoever gives us the most money will own the world's largest empire. Nation, army, people, and free continent rule were auctioned off." Breaking that terrifying silence, a fierce bidding war began between 2 of Rome's wealthiest and most power-hungry politicians. Inside the fort, the slain king's father-in-law Sulpicianus bribed guards with millions for power. He bid 20,000 sesterces, the currency of that era, for each guard. Guards cheered wildly, but outside the fort, Rome's arrogant, rich, greedy senator Didius Julianus offered a bid, stunning them all. Julianus shouted, "25,000 sesterces, I'll give each soldier 25,000. Right now, I swear it." This sum easily exceeded a soldier's 5-year salary. Guards never saw so much money in 7 generations. Blinded by greed, they opened the fortress gates. Without firing a single arrow, without fighting any war, Didius Julianus had bought the world's most powerful empire solely with money. Julianus entered the royal palace like an emperor with his chest puffed out. He thought he had won the world's biggest gamble. He immediately gave a strict order to break the locks of the Imperial Treasury to pay the soldiers. But when treasure door opened, Julianus froze, ground shifting, cold sweat on his brow. The Imperial Treasury was completely empty. The previous emperors of Rome had already squandered every last penny on their debauchery and frivolous expenses. A terrifying silence fell over the palace. The same ferocious guards who had killed their previous emperor for money were now drawing their swords and staring at Julianus. To save his life, Julianus made a grim choice. Overnight, he sold his palace, lands, and fortune, paying off those greedy soldiers. He thought that by emptying his bank balance, he had cheated death and his power was secure. But Julianus had made the biggest mistake. He had bought the greedy palace guards, but he forgot that the real strength of Rome was not those guards, but the real Roman army shedding blood on the frontiers, drunk on power. Julianus didn't foresee the coming storm. The frontier army had already heard about the auction. On Pannonia's European borders, Rome's fiercest, ruthless, battle-winning general stood posted there. Septimius Severus, not a hired guard, he was just strategist and killer. When he learned that some corrupt guards had sold Rome to a greedy businessman, his eyes turned red with anger. He flatly refused to accept this shameful deal and immediately ordered his vast, ferocious army to march towards Rome. Severus's army began to advance towards Rome like a whirlwind of death. When Julianus received the news that Severus's invincible army was coming to kill him, all his arrogance was shattered. Driven mad with fear and panic, Julianus immediately began fortifying Rome. He summoned the Praetorian Guards whom he had bought with all his wealth. Julianus fell at their feet, tempting them with more money and higher positions to go and fight Severus's army. Here, Julianus would face his life's worst betrayal. Julianus had forgotten that mercenaries never fight to win a war. They only fight to stay alive. The guards knew very well that if they clashed with Severus's fearsome and real army, they would be cut down like carrots and radishes. Seeing death before them, those corrupt soldiers flatly refused to fight for Julianus. But it didn't end there. To save their own lives, those guards made another dirty deal. They secretly messaged General Severus, "Spare us, we'll open Rome's gates without a fight, and we'll bring you Didius Julianus' severed head today." Julianus was totally alone. Fear drove him to act crazy. Historical documents state that he summoned magicians, made horrific sacrifices in front of the idols of gods, and begged for his life, crying. But death was now standing at his door. Julianus sat just 66 days on the throne he bought with 7 generations' fortune. When Severus's army entered Rome, the Senate, once cowed by Julianus's bribes, instantly switched sides, stripped him of power, and publicly pronounced a death sentence. On a cold night, in a desolate and dark bathhouse of the palace, a soldier advanced towards Julianus with a naked sword. The world's richest man knelt on the ground. Fear filled his face. Before dying, this greedy man spoke last words. "What wrong did I do? Whose blood spilled?" One swing severed the world's priciest king's head off. Didius Julianus never grasped, till death, that power bought without work, loyalty, or respect is this world's worst crime. This hair-raising history screams one thing to remind us. You can buy any throne, any status, or any position in the world with money, but the real trust and loyalty of people are never for sale in any market. When greed rules the mind, even the richest die a terrifying, helpless death. Quick question. Friends, imagine you had Didius Julianus level fortune. Would you chase power and office, or use that money differently, to help others instead? Be sure to tell me your answer in the comments below. I am going to read everyone's opinion.